Alright, listen. You've probably clicked on this video because you've been meaning to learn a language for a while and just haven't been able to stay consistent with it. And I want to make something clear in the first 30 seconds here. Anyone can learn a language. Heck, anyone can do anything with unlimited willpower. If you have no problem waking up at 4 a.m. or doing ultra marathons, then you probably don't need this video. You can just go out and learn a language in any way you want because you can just grind through it and get results. But if you're like me, your willpower comes in spurts. So any traditional method to trying to learn a language usually doesn't work. Let me know if that sounds familiar. You watch a movie in Spanish or with Anadamas and you're like, I'm gonna learn Spanish. And so you re-download Duolingo for the zillionth time like Tinder. You start grinding through lessons for a couple days. Maybe you get to a 3 or 4 day streak and then you kind of just fizzle it. And then Duolingo is sending you constant reminders, which is just making you feel worse about giving up. And then you don't open the app for another few months until the cycle starts all over again. It's 2024, let's flip the script. First, a quick personal backstory. My name is Kale. I grew up as a monolinguist, only speaking English, even though my parents spoke multiple other languages, which I still resent for not learning as a baby, but that's another story from my therapist. I took some Spanish in high school and sucked at it until I decided to apply myself and started taking it a bit more seriously. Then I moved to Korea for 8 months during college to teach English. I lived in a small town with a low English level, and I knew zero Korean when I got there, which was a problem. But with some smart studying, I got to a pretty decent conversational level in a few months. In 2022, I moved to South America to work remotely and refined my language learning method to become completely conversational in Spanish before going down there. Learning Spanish and Korean and later Portuguese completely transformed my experience in Korea and South America. I created friendships that I wouldn't have otherwise, and I learned so much about the people and the culture by knowing the local language. Now you're probably thinking, okay, yes, I already know that I want to learn a language. Now how do I learn it and stay consistent without getting death threats from that little green owl? Remember, I created these learning strategies for myself because I'm the person that I described at the beginning of the video. It's very hard for me to stay consistently motivated, and I procrastinate by scrolling on social media to get that dose of dopamine. Heck, if you check out my YouTube page, you'll probably see that I'm pretty inconsistent with uploads. This script alone took a few weeks to actually sit down and write. So don't worry. We're not going to learn a language in a way that requires you to constantly push yourself against your dopamine urges every day. We're going to lean into it. So let's get into it. So that you don't waste your time, let's cover a couple of common methods that don't work and may actually be even hurting your chance at learning a language. But before we do that, we're already a couple minutes into this video. If you've paid attention so far, thank you. And you should congratulate yourself. I know there are a million engaging things to watch on the internet, so to take a few minutes to try and improve yourself with me is a huge first step in the right direction. If this video resonates with you by the end, I'm going to apply these methods to try and learn French in a week in my next video and take you through the whole process. So if you want to be notified when that drops, press subscribe and click the bell button. Alright, let's go. Method that doesn't work number 1, watching movies and shows with English subtitles. The English subtitles make it so you don't have to pick up the language. If this was an effective method, every anime fan would know Japanese. 2. We touched on this before, but Duolingo. I've seen many people on the internet who have 500 and 1,000 day streaks on Duolingo and still don't know the language. That's 2 to 3 years. Duolingo gives the perception of progression like a video game with its sounds and levels, but in reality, you're progressing towards fluency much slower than you think. I still like Duolingo myself, because sometimes it is super satisfying, but the perception of progression may actually be hurting you in the long run, because it discourages you from using more effective language learning tools. Number 3, through a textbook or encyclopedia. I'm not going to even get into this one too much. It's not the 1800s anymore. This is not how we interact with the world, and it's not even close to the most effective or engaging way to learn a language. And number 4 is just going to a place. I've heard so many people think that I learned Korean just because I went to Korea, and that's totally not true. I know so many people who move to a place and don't learn the language at all, and it's especially common when you know English because you can find someone who speaks English almost anywhere. Don't think that you can just fly across the world and live in a city and soak up a language through osmosis. It'd be like going to an NBA game and knowing how to dunk like LeBron after. It just doesn't work like that. Now that we've gotten those out of the way, let's finally set you up with the toolkit that will allow you to leverage your procrastination and ADHD to learn a language. Like a conversation, there are two sides to this language coin. There are going to be activities that focus on input, improving your understanding, and output, your ability to produce and recall the language. Let's start with input. First and foremost, change your phone language to the target language, as long as it uses the same alphabet. If you're learning something like Russian, you should probably learn the alphabet first, or else you won't even know how to pronounce what is on your screen. And if you're learning something like Chinese, may God help you. But yes, if you're on your phone getting those sweet hits of dopamine every day, leverage that to your advantage and passively learn a language in the meantime. You'll be heavily motivated to learn how to navigate in this language because you'll need it in order to use your phone. This is something that doesn't even take time out of your day and is a small thing, and it can be a big step towards immersion. Okay, 2. What's that guilty pleasure show that you like watching over and over again? For me, it's Seinfeld. Have you ever felt guilty for wanting to watch the same episodes of something for the 3rd or 4th time? Well, I'm giving you complete guilt-free permission to do that today. Just change the language. And don't put on English subs. I do this with Seinfeld. The difference with this and watching something with English subs is you already understand what's going on because you've seen the episode before. You might even know each line. Now that you have the understanding out of the way, your brain can solely focus on picking up new words and connecting it to the meaning that you already know. It's super effective. You can also turn on subtitles in the target language. Just know that subs usually don't match with the voice because the subtitles and voiceovers are created separately. I do think it still helps though.
No soup for you! Come back 1 year!
3. Find a handful of language teachers on Instagram or your social media of choice that make regular, engaging, and easy to understand videos in your target language. This one doesn't need a huge explanation. You just get more input into your feed and passively absorb more of the language while you're doom scrolling.
Escúchame, si no hablas español, te vas. Y no estoy jugando contigo. A mí no me vas a hacer reto. No me vas a hacer reto. No me interesa. Tus retos coche.
That's it for input. By switching your phone language, watching your favorite shows in your target language, and adding content in that language to your social media feeds, you're absorbing so much of your target language without having to change any of your daily habits. Now let's go to output. So picking up a language passively and being able to recognize words is one thing, but you need to be able to produce your own sentences to be fluent. And this does take some energy, but we create sentences and talk in our native language all the time. So let's just position ourselves so that we do it in a target language as well. Number 1, directly translate sentences that you like to or usually say. You may have heard, don't learn a language through Google Translate. Well, boo-hoo. Google Translate is a great resource and it allows you to translate sentences that you need to know. And what are the sentences that you need to know? Well, what do you normally say? Don't just learn vocab in the order that a course prioritizes it. Some of the first words they teach you in Duolingo are like apple and bread. I don't think I've said the word apple to anyone my whole time in South America, maybe once or twice. So think of the sentences that you use in your daily life. How do you introduce yourself? For me, I'd put, hi, I'm Kale, I'm 25 years old, and I'm a Canadian, but I've lived in other places like Korea and Colombia. Let's look at that sentence if we translate it into French. We have bonjour, je m'appelle Kale. J'ai 25 ans et je suis Canadien, mais j'ai vécu dans d'autres endroits comme la Corée et la Colombie. Okay, that accent was terrible, but I've learned a ton from this one sentence that's important to me. I know how to introduce myself. I know dans means in. I know j'ai means to have, and I know that I can say j'ai plus a verb to make it past tense. I've picked up new vocab, new grammar, and it just gives me a good feel of how sentences are in that language. I know this takes effort to analyze and remember a sentence, so let's try to make it fun. Every day, think of a sentence that you normally say, or you'd like to say. You can think of something new that you learned about an interest of yours or a funny quote, anything, and translate that one sentence. It's material that is relevant to your life and that you'll use, and you're able to take so much vocab and grammar from doing this. 2, I want you to try and think in this language as much as possible. We think all the time, so use this to your advantage. I'm usually talking to myself in my head, and when I'm learning a language, I try to just talk to myself in that language. It can be really fun to try and translate your thoughts, although it might be a little bit hard and frustrating at first. A fun little thing I like to do is translate the lyrics of a song in my head and try to sing it with the same original tempo. 3, once you get your feet wet, you gotta start communicating in your target language. One thing I enjoy doing that is completely free is using apps like HelloTalk and Tandem to find native speakers. Starting with conversation through text and voice messages can be a less nerve-wracking way to get started with conversations. You text with people all the time. Why not message some new interesting people and learn about a language and culture in the process? An alternative to this, and what I currently do, is use Preply or a similar site to find a dedicated language tutor. Depending on the language, you can usually find an awesome tutor for around $5 an hour, and they'll be patient with you as you try to have your first conversations. It's very important to start with someone who is going to be patient and understanding, and who won't always stop the conversation to correct your mistakes. But they will repeat your sentences with the correct grammar to help you drill it in. For example, if I say, "I gone to the store," they'll say, "Oh, you went to the store? Nice, what did you buy?" It really doesn't feel like a grind in these lessons, because if you find the right tutor, it just feels like you're having a nice conversation with a friend, just a bit slower. If anyone is trying to learn Spanish, I'll link my profs page in the description. This isn't sponsored or anything. It's just, this is literally the prof I use right now, and I want to help her out because she's an amazing person. Okay, so those are the 6 things that you can start doing right now. But Kale, you may say, you didn't give clear enough instructions. Well, that's kind of the point. If I give you strict directions, then these things feel like a chore, like another piece of work that you have to get done through the day. I want you to just implement these things into your daily life and take advantage of your time on your phone and on Instagram and YouTube. But if you really want a clear prescription with these 6 things covered, here it is. Number 1, change your phone language immediately as long as you know the alphabet of the target language. 2, watch a show you enjoy every night in the target language with target language subtitles. 3, find 5 language prof accounts on Instagram or TikTok, whichever you scroll on more, and then follow them so they show up on your feed. Try to follow 1 or 2 more a week. 4, translate and analyze 1 sentence every day that is relevant to you. Make sure you know and understand each word in that sentence. Don't just memorize it. 5, overthinking in your head? Try to think to yourself in a target language. See how well you can express your own thoughts to yourself in that language. 6, download an app like HelloTalk and try having some interesting conversations. Or find a tutor on Preply that you vibe with and set up an hour-long conversation every week just to talk about life and your interests. So there you go. That's Dr. Kale's prescription. If you need help finding material for a certain language, leave a comment below and I can try to help you with that. And again, my next video will be on putting these things into practice to learn as much French as possible in 1 week. So if you don't want my content, my channel, to be lost in the ether of YouTube content, then subscribe. And I will see you next time. Bye. Have a lovely day.